All eyes on some of the key congressional races here in the Central Valley as Republicans will try to take over the House. But a new national abortion ban bill proposed by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has many in the party, especially here locally, remaining silent on it, deflecting that this midterm is still all about inflation. Let's welcome back California GOP Chair Jessica Milan Patterson. Good to have you back on Sunday Morning Matters. And I want to jump right into things and start with voter registration. I want to know from you, has the Republican Party in Fresno County been able to increase voter support for its candidates as we get closer to the midterm? You know, the numbers that we look at from the county clerk shows the Democratic Party still owns the Fresno County for registered voters in the area, and NPP very close behind. How concerned are you about that?
Well, voter registration is something that we've been working on for 3 years now. This is something that when we came into leadership at the California Republican Party, we were essentially the third largest party in the state, if you count declined estates as an organized party. We worked incredibly hard to overcome those numbers, and we've done it all over the state, moving into that second spot and even growing our margin over declined estates. This isn't something that it happened overnight. It's something that can't necessarily be fixed overnight. But what we're doing in addition to registering voters is talking to voters that aren't traditional Republicans, declined estates, independents, and even some soft Democrats. And we've seen some success from that. And I think those numbers bow out with our candidates and how they've been able to win in places like the Central Valley.
You know, the narrative, and again, I'm asking you this because this seems to be the narrative, that the Republican messaging is not on point. It's either the Trump Republican or conservative Republican. So what's the messaging for the state party with, 5 weeks to go here before the midterm?
I think Republicans have been right on point with what the issues that matter to California voters the most is. We just saw the PPIC poll come out, and right now the issues that are most important to voters are jobs in the economy, homelessness, housing costs, crime. And those are all things that California Republicans are talking about every single day. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about people who aren't on message with what voters care about, that's California Democrats, and that's because they don't want to run on their record.
You know, Senator Lindsey Graham proposing that national abortion ban bill, as you know, but many congressional Republicans here in the Valley, like David Valadao, they've gone silent. They're trying not to take a side on this issue, really, because, they won't want to shake up the voter roll, if you will. So how does the state party handle this issue as you get closer to the midterm?
I think we continue to talk about the issues that are most important to Californians, and we went through those. Jobs in the economy, homelessness, crime. These are all things that California Democrats have failed on. I get that the media and Democrats want to make this something more exciting than it is, but right now we just don't see anything changing here in California.
So you don't think the abortion conversation will play a role in the midterm here in California?
We've seen time and time again with the polling, with all of the research, that what's pushing people to vote right now is the fact that they have to make choices on things that they easily could afford before, like filling up their gas tank or putting food on the table, being able to pay their electric bill. Mm-hmm. These are things that are really important to Californians right now.
Here in the Central Valley, where will the state really be putting their resources, money, primarily towards the key races? Where do you see that happening?
The Central Valley is really a battleground for us. We have so many opportunities, not just because of the failed policies of Democrats that are currently in office, but because we have found some really great candidates in the Central Valley that represent Central Valley values, whether it's David Shepard, who's running for Senate, against someone like Melissa Hurtado, who seems to be very pro-criminal with some of her votes, whether it was voting against making human trafficking a violent, serious felony, or holding drug dealers accountable for fentanyl overdoses. She seems to come on the side of criminals. Or on the congressional side, we have a lot of great opportunities. Obviously, we'll be working hard to make sure David Valadao is reelected, but new opportunities like John Duarte and Tom Patty. And then over on the assembly side, having former Sheriff Mark Pazin and Juan Alanis that are both running for the Assembly, the Central Valley is ripe for some new leadership.
I want to finish with this, and you have said this, and I've heard it. from a lot of Republicans. They're fed up with California, right? They're leaving the state. But then Governor Newsom, he continues to have this massive support from voters. Why hasn't the Republican Party been able to put a candidate on the ballot, at least for governor, that will be able to have that same support? Or do you think Senator Brian Dahle has that support?
I think that it's going to be incredibly difficult to run with that D behind your name, regardless of what office you're running for, if it's governor or if it's dog catcher. And I think Senator Brian Dahle definitely he has a great story to tell, and definitely brings that type of competition where people have a viable option against Gavin Newsom. If you want to continue down this path that California Democrats and Gavin Newsom have put us on, then there's your choice. But if you want something new, if you want some sort of change here in California, someone like Brian Dahle would be that perfect juxtaposition.
All right, State Chair for the GOP party, Jessica Milan Patterson, thanks so much for being on once again. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks for having me.